Morning, class 10. So in the previous lecture, we discussed about nuclear energy. If you remember, I told you about nuclear fusion and nuclear fission, right? The differences between the two and how nuclear energy, if handled properly, it's a very big, tremendous source of energy for the coming future. But if mishandled, I also told you how it can lead to disasters, right? So today we are going to learn about one such disaster that occurred because of the nuclear pollution, right? Radioactive elements. So I have told you we'll be discussing about the Chernobyl disaster, which is a very important question in ICSE, right? So on page number 89 in your textbook, I have given you a brief note in your exercise copies also on Chernobyl disaster, right? So this Chernobyl disaster related to nuclear disaster, that is radioactive pollution. This is the worst disaster that has ever occurred, okay? And it occurred on, first you have to remember the date, and then you have to remember where the disaster occurred. So it occurred on 26th April 1986. And what had happened in 1984? If you remember, we have done this. In 1984, Bhopal gas tragedy had taken place. Okay, another big disaster in India, the Bhopal gas tragedy that occurred in the year 1984. And in 1986, 26th April, we had the Chernobyl disaster. And what happened in 2021? That also you should know, because you get questions related to issues happening in your environment, okay, which is not a part of your syllabus. So this year, 2021 in Visakhapatnam, the leakage that happened in the industry, please read and try to understand that particular disaster also. So, related to Chernobyl disaster, this occurred in 1986 and it is supposed to be the worst radioactive pollution disaster, okay? And where did it occur? It occurred in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which is in Ukraine, okay? This particular disaster occurred in Ukraine, right? In the year 1986. And why this particular disaster occurred in the industry, the reason behind the disaster is that what happened is, one day before the disaster on 25th of April, there was some maintenance work going on in the industry, and it was a mistake of the people who were working in the industry. They shut down one automatic machine. Had they not shut down that particular machine, then the leakage would not have gone into the environment. It would not have affected the people. But because that particular automatic shutdown machine was shut by the people, the next day there was explosion in the industry, and because the machine was shut down, the entire radioactive elements, they went out into the air. And the first explosion, nothing happened, but the second explosion, it tore the industry apart. The industry building was torn apart, and there was burning graphite into the air. Okay, and what happened immediately? What were the immediate symptoms? Because it was radioactive pollution, I told you what happens when radiation enters your body. What happened is, the initial symptoms that people had were, there was nausea, there was vomiting tendency, there was dizziness, there was headache, okay? And later, 3 workers inside the industry, they died immediately. And later, the people who were exposed to that particular pollution, they started suffering from different kinds of cancer, right? So this particular disaster is still very, very fresh in the minds of the people. Workers died, people who were exposed, not only Ukraine, but other countries near Ukraine, they were also affected because of this particular radiation pollution. And the place in Ukraine, if you check your textbook, on the next day of the disaster, that is 27th of April, what happened is, the residents, there was a place called Pripyat, okay? The residents of this particular place were taken, they were evacuated, and they were taken to a safer place. And what happened, you'll see an objective question on page number 89 class, that is the red forest. What is the red forest, right? So what was the environmental impact of Chernobyl disaster? All the trees and the forests that were there in the surrounding, when this gas leaked and it went in the environment, what happened is the leaves of the trees, they were burnt, they were charred, and all the leaves, they had become reddish in color because they were burnt with the radiation, right? And the entire area looked green. I'm so sorry. The entire area looked red because of the burnt leaves in the trees, and that particular area came to be known as the Red Forest, right? And later what happened is the air was contaminated. People who still survived for many years, later they were detected with some kind of cancer, because when radiation enters your body, what happens is, you must be knowing that every human body has cancer cells in the dormant stage. Those cancer cells, they get activated when radiation enters your body. So people who survived the disaster, after many years, they were suffering from some kind of cancer. So this is if you are asked in ICSE, the worst nuclear disaster that has ever occurred, it is the Chernobyl disaster that occurred in the nuclear power plant in Ukraine, right? So you have to remember the date and the environmental impacts of Chernobyl disaster, right? So after this, these are the major ICSE questions. After this, if you see your syllabus, the major part of your chapter discusses alternate sources of energy, right? So I have given you very simplified notes on solar, geothermal, wind, nuclear, biomass energy. So I have given you advantage and disadvantage of each type of energy, right? So why are they called alternate sources of energy? Alternate is another name for renewable source of energy, right? Alternate, when we cannot use the conventional sources of energy like coal, petroleum, diesel, when we cannot use them. Why we cannot use them? I told you in the previous lecture, because one is because they are limited, they are finite, they may get exhausted in the coming future, and the second reason is that they cause a lot of pollution into the environment. So we are trying to look for an alternative, and the alternative has come in the form of renewable sources of energy, that is solar, hydro. In your syllabus you have geothermal energy, then you have hydroelectricity, wind power, biomass energy. These are a part of your syllabus. So today I will be discussing, if you just go through your notes also, I have already simplified it in your notes. Today I would like to discuss with you biomass as a source of energy. Very important ICSE question is biomass as a source of energy. What do you mean by biomass? Biomass means the energy we gain from dead plants, dead animals, agricultural waste. Whatever energy you can gather from organic matter, dead materials, agricultural waste, that is biomass energy. And again, that is divided into three parts. Please remember, biomass energy is divided into three parts. You can see on page number 92. One is biogas, the second is energy plantation, and the third one is bagasse-based energy. So what are the three categories of biomass energy? We have biogas, we have energy plantation, and we have bagasse-based energy, right? Biogas, number one. First one is biogas. So you have all heard of biogas. Biogas is made from the dung of animals. Please do not keep the misconception that it is only cow dung. No, dung of any animal. Okay, the dung of any animal is taken and mixed with water, and that mixture is called slurry. Okay, and that is just kept in a very simple construction. A chamber is made with bricks, and all the waste material, the dung of animals, is put inside that chamber, mixed with water, and that mixture is called slurry. And definitely, because it gives out a very bad odor, we cover it. The entire tank is covered. And when the decomposition begins, when it starts decaying, then there is methane gas that is liberated. Methane gas, along with carbon monoxide and some greenhouse gases are there, but the useful gas that we get out of this is methane. And that methane is tapped. We tap the methane, and through pipes it is supplied to the various houses. And as you know, methane is a gas that burns excellently. It burns, and it serves as a source of energy for cooking and lighting, especially in the village areas. So this is one excellent source of energy that we are trying to harness from waste material, that is from the dung of animals, that is biomass, right? Second concept, energy plantation. If you remember, I have already taught you about energy plantation. Okay, what is the meaning of energy plantation? Energy plantation means planting energy. Okay, energy plantation means you plant energy. How do you plant energy now? It means you plant trees, right, which later serve as a source of energy, right? What kind of trees do we plant now? Trees which are fast growing, trees which are very, very woody, and trees which can grow in any kind of soil. Okay, trees having these characteristics, they should be woody because you're going to use that as a source of firewood, as a source of energy. These trees should be fast growing. Their maturity period is 5 to 8 years. Within 5 to 8 years, they mature and they can be cut down, and you can take it and use it as a source of firewood. So we call this energy plantation. You are planting energy. You are planting trees that are woody and fast growing so that the rural people can cut them down and use it as a source of energy, that is firewood, for cooking their food. Okay. And the last one, bagasse. I have told you about this also. Bagasse based energy is what? Sugarcane, as you all know. Once the sugar, the juice is extracted, then what we do is the fiber that is left from the sugarcane stalk that is left after you extract the juice, that is called bagasse, and that is an excellent source of energy. Not only energy, this particular bagasse is also used for making paper. Okay, instead of cutting down trees for making paper, nowadays we are using bagasse for paper making. Very, very eco-friendly. All the Harry Potter books that you read, they are all made from bagasse. They are not traditional paper. Okay, very eco-friendly, and they can be recycled several times, right? So bagasse can also be used as a source of energy. It can also be used for manufacturing paper. So these three things that I told you, biogas, energy plantation, and bagasse, all come under biomass energy, right? They are very, very advantageous. The only disadvantage of biogas is that it liberates some amount of greenhouse gases that leads to some kind of pollution. Otherwise, it is all very cheap and advantageous. So the rest of the energy resources I will be discussing with you in the next class. Okay, just few topics are left, and then we will begin with chapter 8. Thank you, class.